Hey YouTubers, welcome to the Cyber Overwatch channel. I am Pragmatic1. In this video, I'm doing something a little different. Rather than a straight boot-to-root machine walkthrough, I'm going to cover a couple of pen testing techniques in depth, and then demonstrate it against a TryHackMe machine. The techniques are called Kerberoasting and ASREPRoasting, two of the most impactful Active Directory attack techniques that every pen tester and red teamer should have in their toolkit. These are techniques that appear on real-world engagements constantly. They're responsible for some of the most significant corporate network breaches in history, and they work against a protocol that's been deployed in virtually every enterprise Windows environment on the planet for over 2 decades. The demonstration machine is TryHackMe's Active Directory, an intermediate level room that puts you up against a vulnerable Windows domain controller running in an Active Directory environment. Let's get into it. This video has 2 parts. In the first part, I'll cover the technique in depth, what it is, where it came from, how it works technically, and how to execute it and remediate it properly. In the second part, I'll demonstrate a full attack chain on the TryHackMe's Active Directory. Specifically, I'll cover what Active Directory and Kerberos are and why they matter to attackers, the background and history of Kerberoasting and ASREPRoasting, who discovered these techniques and when, technical deep dive, how Kerberos authentication works and where it breaks, tools and best practices for executing these attacks on an engagement, best practices for remediating and defending against these techniques. I'll perform a demonstration on the following: host enumeration on a Windows domain controller using Nmap, domain enumeration with enum for Linux and Kerberos, ASREPRoasting with packets get np users Python script, offline hash cracking with hashcat, SMB enumeration and credential reuse, DC sync with secret dump, and shell access with evil WinRM. If you find this content informative and you are interested in cybersecurity, please like and subscribe to the Cyber Overwatch channel. Also, for more free content, regularly check back on www.cyberoverwatch.com. Before I dive into the technical content, let's map everything I'll be covering today to the MITRE ATT&CK framework so you can see exactly where Kerberoasting and ASREPRoasting sit in the attack lifecycle. T1558.003 Steal or Forge Kerberos tickets. Kerberoasting. Any authenticated domain user can request TGS tickets for service accounts registered with SPNs. These tickets are encrypted with the service account's NTLM hash and can be cracked offline. T1558.004 Steal or Forge Kerberos tickets. ASREPRoasting. User accounts with Kerberos pre-authentication disabled will respond to AS request messages with an encrypted ASREP that can be cracked offline without first authenticating. T1087.002 Account Discovery Domain Account, Kerberos, and enum for Linux are used to enumerate valid domain user accounts from the key distribution center without authentication. T1550.002 Use alternate authentication material past the hash. NTLM hashes recovered via secret dump are used to authenticate to services without needing plain text passwords. T1003.003 OS Credential Dumping, NTDS. Secret dump is used to perform DC sync attack, replicating domain credentials from a domain controller as if it were a domain replication part. To understand Kerberoasting and ASREPRoasting, you first need to understand what they're attacking. Let me give you the essential context. Active Directory is Microsoft's directory service. It's the centralized authentication and authorization system that manages users, computers, groups, and policies across virtually every corporate Windows network on the planet. Since almost all corporate networks run off AD, learning to exploit vulnerable AD setups is a must-have skill for successful pen testers. When you compromise an Active Directory environment, you aren't just compromising one machine. You have the potential to compromise every machine, every user account, and every resource on the entire network. This is why Active Directory attacks are so highly valued in pen testing and why threat actors from ransomware gangs to nation-state APT groups target AD as their primary objective on corporate networks. Kerberos is the authentication protocol that Active Directory uses under the hood. It was developed at MIT in the 1980s, is named after the 3-headed dog from Greek mythology that guards the gates of the underworld, and was designed to allow users and services to authenticate to each other securely over an untrusted network without transmitting passwords in clear text. Here's the core problem. Kerberos is over 40 years old, was designed in a different threat era, and has several design characteristics that security researchers have learned to abuse in ways its original designers never anticipated. Before I explain the attack, let me explain what's actually happening when a user logs into an Active Directory domain. Understanding this is essential to understanding why the attack works. Step 1. AS request, AS response, authentication service exchange. When a user logs in, their machine sends an authentication service request to the key distribution center, which runs on the domain controller. This request includes a timestamp encrypted with a hash derived from the user's password. The KDC decrypts it, verifies the user exists, and responds with an AS response containing a ticket granting ticket encrypted with the KDC's own secret key. Step 2. TGS request, TGS response, ticket granting service exchange. When a user needs to access a service, say file share or web application, their machine presents the ticket granting ticket to the KDC and requests a service ticket, TGS, for that specific service. The KDC responds with a TGS ticket encrypted with the NTLM hash of the service account that runs that service. Step 3. Application request. The user's machine presents a TGS ticket to the target service, which decrypts it using its own account hash to verify the user is who they say they are. The critical design characteristic that enables both attacks. The KDC does not verify that the requesting user actually has permission to access the service before issuing a TGS ticket. Any authenticated domain user can request a TGS for any service, and for ASREPRoasting, under certain conditions, the KDC will respond to a AS request without even verifying the requester's identity first. Kerberoasting was first publicly disclosed by Tim Medin at DerbyCon 2014 in his presentation attacking Microsoft Kerberos, kicking the guard dog of Hades. At the time, it was considered a significant breakthrough in Active Directory offensive security because it provided a reliable way to extract credentials from a domain using only a low-privileged domain user account. No administrator access was required. The core insight Tim Medin had was this: any domain user can request a TGS ticket for any service requested with a service principal name in the domain. Those TGS tickets are encrypted with the NTLM hash of the service account. If you have those tickets and crack them offline, you recover the service account's plaintext password. The attack uses the domain's own authentication infrastructure against itself. It generates traffic that is entirely legitimate from the KDC's perspective, making it extremely difficult to detect without specifically monitoring for unusual TGS request patterns. Service principal names are the key to Kerberoasting. An SPN is a unique identifier for a service instance registered in Active Directory. For example, MSSQL-SVC/SQLserver.domain.com:1433 identifies a SQL Server instance. Every server with an SPN has an associated service account whose password hash is used to encrypt TGS tickets, and that hash is what I'm after. ASREPRoasting is closely related but distinct attack technique. While Kerberoasting targets service accounts via their SPN registrations, ASREPRoasting targets user accounts that have a specific misconfiguration, do not require Kerberos pre-authentication. ASREPRoasting occurs when a user account has the privilege does not require pre-authentication set. This means that the account does not need to provide valid identification before requesting a Kerberos ticket on the specified user account. Normally, the pre-authentication step requires the client to prove they know the user's password by encrypting a timestamp with the user's password hash before the KDC will issue a TGT. When pre-authentication is disabled, a setting that exists to support legacy applications, the KDC will send back a TGT encrypted with the user's password hash in response to any AS request without verifying who is asking. This means an attacker can, without any domain credentials whatsoever, send an AS request for an account with pre-authentication disabled and receive back an encrypted blob derived from the account's password hash. The blob can then be cracked offline. ASREPRoasting was formalized and popularized by Will Schroeder and the team at SpectreOps, who developed Rubus, toolkit that implements the attack on Windows. From the Linux side, Impacket get MP users script, where the MP stands for no pre-authentication, implements the same attack. The relationship between the two: Kerberoasting requires a valid domain user account to make TGS requests. ASREPRoasting requires no authentication at all, just a list of valid usernames. In a real engagement, ASREPRoasting is typically performed first. It can yield credentials without any prior access. Those credentials can then be used to perform Kerberoasting and other authenticated attacks. When executing Kerberoasting or ASREPRoasting on an authorized engagement, following structured best practices ensures you get results efficiently while minimizing noise. Here's how I approach it. Number 1, scope and authorization first. Before you touch a domain, confirm your rules of engagement explicitly permits Active Directory attacks. Kerberoasting generates KDC traffic. A well-tuned SOC may alert on it. Know what monitoring is in place. Number 2, start with passive enumeration. Before any Kerberos requests, enumerate the domain passively using enum for Linux, LDAP search, or Bloodhound to understand the environment, users, groups, SPNs, and trust relationships. The more context you have, the more targeted your attack can be. Enumerate valid usernames with Kerbrute. Kerbrute's user enum mode brute forces valid usernames against the Kerberos service without lockout risk. It uses valid format AS requests, not login attempts. This gives you a target list for ASREPRoasting. ASREPRoast before Kerberoasting. Run get NP users against your enumerated user list. This requires 0 credentials and may immediately yield crackable hashes. Kerberoast once you have credentials. With valid domain credentials, enumerate SPNs and request TGS tickets. Number 6. Crack hashes offline. Use hashcat with the appropriate mode. ASREPRoasting hashes uses mode 18200. Kerberoasting TGS hashes uses mode 13100. Number 7. Validate and pivot. Test cracked credentials immediately against SMB, WinRM, and RDP before moving on. Cracked service account passwords frequently have domain admin rights or access to sensitive data. Number 8. Document everything. Capture timestamps, commands, and outputs at every step. Evidence of the attack path is essential for the final report. Understanding the defensive side is just as important as understanding the offensive side. Here are the industry accepted best practices for remediating and detecting Kerberoasting and ASREPRoasting. Against Kerberoasting, number 1. Enforce strong, long passwords on all service accounts, 25+ characters. The entire attack depends on cracking the TGS ticket offline. A password of 25+ random characters from a large character set makes offline cracking computationally infeasible with current hardware. This is the single most impactful control. Number 2. Implement group managed service accounts. Replace traditional service accounts with group managed service accounts. These accounts use complex, automatically managed passwords, eliminating the risk of weak static passwords. Windows automatically rotates group managed service account passwords to 120 character random values, completely uncrackable. Number 3. Audit SPNs regularly. Use PowerShell to enumerate all accounts with SPNs and verify each one is legitimate and necessary. Remove SPNs from accounts that no longer need them. Number 4. Enable AES encryption for service accounts. Kerberos supports multiple encryption types. RC4 encryption is the weakest and what Kerberoasting traditionally targets. Enforcing AES 256 encryption for service account tickets makes cracking significantly harder even if tickets are captured. Number 5. Applying principle of least privilege to service accounts. Service accounts should not have any unnecessary administrative or interactive login rights. They should strictly adhere to the principle of least privilege. Against ASREPRoasting. Number 1. Disable do not require Kerberos pre-authentication on all accounts. Audit the domain and remove this setting from every account that does not explicitly require it for a documented legacy application reason. This flag should almost never be set in a modern environment. Number 2. Enforce strong passwords on any accounts that must have pre-auth disabled. If you absolutely cannot enable pre-authentication on an account due to legacy application requirements, ensure that account has a very strong password to maximize cracking difficulty. Detection. Number 1. Monitor Windows event IDs 4769 TGS request and 4768 TGT request. A single user account requesting large numbers of TGS tickets in a short window is a strong indicator of Kerberoasting. A 4768 event with an unusual encrypted type from an unknown source IP is a potential ASREPRoasting indicator. Number 2. Deploy honeypot SPNs and honeypot pre-auth disabled accounts. Create service accounts with SPNs or pre-auth disabled that are never legitimately used. Any Kerberos request targeting these accounts is definitively malicious and should trigger an immediate alert. Thank you for watching part 1 of Roasting Active Directory, the technical deep dive. Let me quickly recap what I covered. I started with the foundational context, what Active Directory is, why it's the single most valuable target in a corporate network, and why Kerberos, a 40-year-old protocol designed at MIT in a completely different threat era, is the mechanism that both of these exploits attack. I'll walk through the Kerberos authentication flows step by step, the AS request and AS response exchange that issues a ticket granting ticket, the ticket granting service request and ticket granting service response exchange, where any authenticated domain user can request a service ticket for any SPN registered service, and the critical design flaw that enables everything, the KDC issue SPN registered service. The KDC issues those service tickets without verifying whether the requesting user actually has permission to access the service. I also went over the history of how the two methods were discovered. On the offensive side, I walked through 8 structured best practices, starting with confirming rules of engagement, moving through passive enumeration with Bloodhound and Enum for Linux, username enumeration with Kerberos, ASREPRoasting first with get NP users, Kerberoasting with credentials using get user SPNs, offline cracking with hashcat, credential validation, and thorough documentation. On the defensive side, the controls are well understood but are frequently not implemented. Group managed service accounts with their automatically rotated passwords, enforcing Kerberos pre-authentication on all accounts using AES 256 encryption, monitoring event IDs 4768 and 4768 Offensive-S3c to give defenders the visibility they need, and honeypot SPN accounts that provide near zero false positive detection of active attacks. In part 2, we'll take everything covered in this video and execute it against TryHackMe's Active Directory, a Windows domain controller in a realistic Active Directory environment. I'll demonstrate several techniques from the first Nmap scan all the way to domain administrator. Be on the lookout for part 2 in the coming weeks. Thank you for checking out the Cyber Overwatch channel. If you found this content useful and you are interested in cybersecurity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Cyber Overwatch channel. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments or reach out through the Cyber Overwatch channel linked in the description. Until next time, keep learning. The only way to improve is to keep learning. Pragmatic1, signing off.